What is up, guys? I am Heavy J. Welcome back to 3J Gaming. This is part 2 of our discussion that me and Joey had. This part focuses mainly on how to improve or revamp or reinvent older franchises that seem to have been just falling into the same kind of routine. We talk about how some games in the past have reinvented themselves and have turned out way better, and how we feel it's a necessity for some of these franchises and games to continue to do this, to either reinvent themselves or go back to some of the staple things that made them great in the first place. So I hope you guys enjoy, and here we go. Exactly, and that's one of the things that me and you were talking about earlier, these older franchises that haven't really made an appearance this year, things like Halo or Gears of War, stuff like that, how they've almost become a little stale, where they're gonna have to beef up their game one way or the other. They are focusing on everything. They're like, oh, we have a campaign, we have a multiplayer, and they're both meh, okay. Like Gears of War 4, the Horde mode, people have a ton of fun with and still enjoy and still play, and that's the draw of Gears of War 4, I would say. But the campaign, other than the fact that you can play it with somebody else, multiplayer campaign, which is fun. Usually people don't do more than once. It's one of those things where, again, if they kind of focused on one or the other, or somehow changed the game, revamped it, kind of like how God of War did, how it was a hack and slash, and they changed how the mechanics worked in the game and stuff like that, to where it can be a survival game or
like a war game.
Yeah, a larger scale.
And I agree with you 100%. God of War was able to do something that not very many games have ever done, and that's take a game that was really good in the first place, like God of War 1 and 2 and 3 was very good as well, and completely change the formula to a point. I mean, it's still God of War, but I mean, there's so many new aspects of the game, but it's even better than than the original. It's very hard for a franchise to do that. They showed that it could be done, and Halo is a really hard game, and this is not Microsoft bashing. Everyone that's listening, please know I have all the systems, and I love all of my systems. I'm not biased more towards one than the other, but Halo, the biggest problem with Halo is that it was the first of its kind, but now it's not. So how do you take it and how do you make it better than the stuff that's out there? So with Halo, it's not the first of its kind anymore. There's other games that are just like it. So because of that, how do you take the game, how do you make it fresh again? You have an established lore, an established story, but how do you make the multiplayer more fun? How do you take it back to those early days of when it felt new and fresh? And that's something that they have to figure out. I don't have the answers, but I'm also not working at 343. And as far as Gears go, Gears is a little bit different, because Gears is still new enough to a point and open enough to they can flip that, a war game, bigger, a larger scale war type game, or they could turn it into a survival style game where maybe your character went rogue or lost communications with the outpost and his crew, and you're all by yourselves. There's a million different ways you can go with Gears, and I think that would be a really easy way to freshen the series up, as opposed to continuing with the same formula, and you're going to constantly get worse and worse in results, because it's been there, done that.
And I want to give you an example of that. I'm just looking through my games here, and I came across Resident Evil 7, and I started thinking about the evolution that this franchise has went through. It started with that survival horror classic, scare the pants off of little kids kind of game, camera angles and creepy monsters and giant spiders, and had everything. And then it started going more into action adventure, and then that was 4 action adventure, over the shoulder, changing this complete, revamped itself. And then 5 and 6 hit, and those were team, not really team based, but you had at least a partner with you, where that could help out. It became a multiplayer experience at that point, again, more action adventure. And then 7, they're just well, that was fun, but let's get back to what we originally made. And they changed perspective yet again to first person for the first time ever, and went back to that survival horror creepy mode, and it turned out to be one of the best games I've ever played. And because they did that, like, because they just said, okay, well, this is Resident Evil, but we could do this to it, revamp how, like, just their entire approach.
Yeah, and that's
how they did it right.
And that's that's an example of going back to your wheelhouse, but also going back and finding what worked for you in the first place. And not to get off topic here, but Capcom has really been killing it lately. They've been doing a great job with almost every game that they've come out with, with the exception of maybe anything in the Dead Rising series. But Capcom's done a really good job putting out really quality titles over the past couple of years. So seeing them get it back on track has been good, and hopefully that rumor about Devil May Cry 5 at E3 will be true. Time will tell. Getting back to what you were saying, you have to reinvent yourself every so often in a long running franchise, or it's gonna stale. It's gonna get stale and it's gonna die. I can't see Halo ever dying, because when you think Xbox, you think Halo. I mean, those go hand in hand. That's like saying Nintendo and Mario. They need to find a way to keep it fresh. And Gears to a certain extent too. I mean, Gears is also one of those games that you think Xbox. So a lot of people think Gears. You have to find a way to reinvent the wheel in those games. Some people will probably disagree and say that they like it the way it is, but sales numbers don't lie either. These games, they need to freshen up. It's not not only sales figures, but also the amount of time people play a game. Look at Halo. I mean, Halo 6. I mean, me and my friends, we played Halo 3 for years, and then Halo 5. And then Halo 4 wasn't as great, but we still played it for a long time. Then Halo 5 came out, and I don't know if any of my buddies played it or myself played it longer than a month. Going back to single player, multiplayer, Halo's one of those games where they really can't do that. Halo has to find that really good balance between a good single player and good multiplayer. 5 was not the answer, but that's one of the few games that can't say, okay, we're only going to do single player or we're only going to do multiplayer. They have to have both. Kind of the same way Gears is in that same boat. They have to have both a good single and multiplayer.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is part 2, so stay tuned for part 3. The discussion starts heading towards Battle Royale kind of modes and how it seems to be the big trend right now with multiplayer games. More and more people are including it in their games. If that interests you, make sure to watch out for part 3 of our discussion. Now make sure to leave a like on this video. If you're new here, please hit that sub button. It really helps us out. If you hit that bell, notified whenever we come out with a brand new video. And until next time, guys. And as always, this is for you, bro.